There's a moment, usually late at night, when everything is quiet, but your chest still feels full. Not with words, not with noise, but with something deeper. A strange rhythm, a question, a quiet awareness of your own heartbeat, and maybe, for a second, you wonder, what is this life force pulsing behind my ribs? Who taught it to keep going when I didn't want to? Because the heart, it doesn't wait for permission. It just beats, even when you're exhausted, even when your hope is low, even when your mind is spiraling. But what if I told you, the way your heart beats isn't just biology, it's biography, a memory of everything you've survived, every nervous moment, every held breath, every quiet triumph. Tonight, we're going to listen, not just to the sound of your heart, but to what it's been trying to tell you all along. Through rhythm, through pressure, through pauses, because understanding your heartbeat might just change the way you feel about your life. If this story speaks to something quiet inside you, stay. This will be slow, gentle, and grounded in truth. You'll learn how your heart works, biologically, emotionally, and symbolically. Not to memorize facts, but to finally feel seen, like the rhythm you've always carried. Finally makes sense, so take a breath. Like the video if you feel safe here. Comment what your heart has been carrying lately. And subscribe, not just for you, but for someone else who needs a calm place to return to. Let's begin. Learn how the heart beating. Chapter 1. The quiet drum inside you. Before you ever knew who you were, before you had a name, before the world even met you, your heart was already beating. It began in darkness, not dramatic, not loud, just a flutter, like a whisper on the surface of a pond, a pulse that belonged to no one but you. At just 22 days after conception, long before you could think, feel, or speak, your body began its first act of rhythm. A tiny heart tube curled and fused into chambers. And from that moment on, you would never stop pulsing with life, not for a second, not through sleep, not through fear, not even through heartbreak. It's strange, isn't it? How we spend so much of life searching for purpose, trying to feel alive, all while carrying a beating drum in our chest, faithfully keeping time, as if to remind us, you are still here. The heart is more than an organ. It's a secret keeper, a quiet companion to every emotion, every silence, every unspoken longing. It beats when you're in love. It beats when you're in pain. It beats when you pretend everything's fine. It beats when you can't stop crying on the bathroom floor. And somehow, it never gets tired of trying. Biologically, it's miraculous. A 4-chambered powerhouse, roughly the size of your fist, and yet strong enough to push blood through 60,000 miles of vessels every day, enough to fill a bathtub in a single day, enough to beat over 3 billion times in your life, without ever needing a break. But behind the mechanics, there is something poetic about it too, because unlike your brain, which sleeps in stages, which shuts down and retreats, the heart doesn't rest. Not really. It dances 24/7 in a rhythm that adjusts itself constantly to whatever your life demands. In science, this rhythm is called heart rate variability, the ability of your heart to respond with subtle shifts to every inhale, every emotion, every flicker of your nervous system, and it's deeply connected to your resilience. People with higher variability tend to sleep better, they recover faster, they handle stress more calmly, they forgive the day more easily. But if your heart is always adjusting to what you feel, then isn't it fair to say that your emotions are written in its rhythm? When someone breaks your trust, your heart skips a little. When someone looks at you with kindness, your chest softens. When you're caught in an endless loop of thoughts, your heartbeat tenses, hard and fast. Sometimes, we forget, your heart doesn't just keep you alive, it feels you alive. And here's something that may surprise you. Your heart has its own nervous system. Scientists sometimes call it the little brain of the heart, an intricate network of over 40,000 neurons that allow your heart to learn, remember, and even make decisions independently from the brain in your skull. This is called neurocardiology, and it's one of the most mysterious, underappreciated facts in all of biology, because it means that what you call gut feeling might actually be a heart knowing it means when you say, "I feel this in my chest," or "my heart isn't in it." You're not being poetic. You're being neurologically accurate. The heart has a kind of awareness, not the kind that solves equations, but the kind that senses danger, connection, safety, betrayal, and it communicates constantly with the brain through pressure, pulse, hormones, and even electromagnetic fields. Yes, the heart has an actual electromagnetic field that extends 3 to 4 feet outside your body. It's the strongest field of any organ. It changes with emotion, and it subtly influences those around you, even when no words are spoken. It's no wonder that so many ancient traditions centered around the heart as the home of the soul. They may not have had Mr. Ears or ultrasound, but they could feel that this rhythm was sacred, and yet today, we often treat the heart like a machine. We check our watches for BPM, we scan our apps for sleep stats, we take medications, supplements, stimulants, trying to force the beat into some perfect rhythm. But sometimes, what your heart needs most isn't control. It's permission. Permission to slow down. Permission to be tender. Permission to grieve. To love. To beat out of rhythm when life feels out of rhythm. Because the heart is not just strong, it's sensitive. Have you noticed how you can't think your way out of a panic attack? How when grief hits, your chest physically hurts? That's because the heart is in conversation with your nervous system. When your stress responds, your sympathetic nervous system gets triggered by fear. Deadlines, loneliness, even scrolling too long on your phone, your heart responds. Instantly, faster, harder, tighter, and over time, this changes the very tone of your body. A heart that never gets to rest starts to armor itself. It stiffens. Its rhythm becomes less flexible. Sleep becomes shallower. Blood pressure rises. Fatigue becomes the norm. And yet, it still tries. It still shows up. Beating, always beating. Even in your worst moments. Even when you've ignored it. Even when you've called yourself broken. Even when you haven't taken a deep breath all day. It doesn't punish you. It just waits for you to come home to it. Because the heart is incredibly forgiving. Its muscle cells repair quietly. Its rhythm can be retrained, even after trauma, even after burnout, and one of the most powerful things you can do to support it is something so simple you might overlook it. Breath. Slow, deep. Mindful breathing, especially through the nose, activates your parasympathetic system, the rest and digest mode. It gently tells your heart, it's okay now. You're safe. Over time, these signals build new patterns. They reshape the way your heart reacts to stress. They help restore rhythm, not just to your cardiovascular system, but to your life. Because the truth is, so much of what we call overthinking is really underfeeling. We live in our heads because the body feels too loud, too vulnerable, too honest. But the heart, it doesn't lie. And if you're willing to listen, it will teach you how to come back to yourself. You might feel it tonight. That gentle thump in your chest. Not perfect, not even, but real, alive. You don't have to fix it. You just have to acknowledge it. Put your hand on your chest, if that feels safe. Breathe in slowly to the count of 4. Hold it, then exhale, even slower. Feel that. That's your first language. That's your original rhythm. You may have lost touch with it. You may have drowned it out with worry or work or heartbreak. But it never stopped. It's still here, waiting to guide you, waiting to soften you, waiting to forgive. So tonight, as you drift towards sleep, remember this: your heart is not just beating to keep you alive. It's beating to bring you back. And in the next chapter, we'll explore what happens when that rhythm speeds up, even when you're not in danger. Because sometimes the heart doesn't know the difference between fear and memory, between real threats and imagined ones. And understanding why your heart races might just be the key to finally feeling safe again. Chapter 2: Why your heart speeds up even when you're safe. You were just sitting there, not running, not panicking, not even moving, just thinking, and yet your heart began to race, a tightness in your chest, a flutter that felt too loud for such a quiet room. The world outside hadn't changed, but inside, something was shifting. Why does that happen? Why does your heart speed up, even when you're alone, even when nothing is wrong, even when you know you're safe? It's a question that haunts many gentle minds, not because the sensation is dangerous, but because it feels like betrayal. You're calm on the surface, but your body doesn't believe you, and that's because the heart doesn't respond to logic. It responds to signals, and not all of those signals come from the outside world. Some come from memory, some come from meaning, some come from the quiet undercurrent of thoughts you barely even notice anymore. You see, your nervous system doesn't ask, is this objectively safe? It asks, have we felt something like this before? And if the answer is yes, if the moment reminds you of a time you were hurt, rejected, overwhelmed, your body will prepare you to survive it. That preparation, it looks like an elevated heart rate, tighter breathing, a sudden alertness that feels almost accusatory. Why? Are you anxious? You were fine just a minute ago, but the heart is not accusing you, it's trying to protect you, in the only way it knows how. This is the sympathetic nervous system, your built-in survival gear. It's fast, it's ancient, it's automatic. It increases your heart rate so more oxygen can reach your muscles. It tightens blood vessels. It sharpens your senses. In a true threat, this response could save your life. But in everyday life, it often gets misfired, because the brain, especially the emotional brain, doesn't always wait for evidence. It acts on interpretation. You walk into a room where you once had a panic attack. Your heart speeds up. You see someone who reminds you of your ex. Your chest tightens. You remember something you failed at last year. And suddenly, your pulse quickens. Nothing is chasing you, but your body is still running. This is the hidden cost of unresolved stress. The body can't tell the difference between the memory of the past and the threat of the present. It reacts just the same. This is why sometimes people feel their heart race before a phone call, before opening an email, before answering a text from someone they used to love. The danger isn't physical, it's emotional, and still, the heart listens. The heart doesn't just pump blood. It responds to your inner world, your thoughts, your fears, your beliefs about what might happen next. And the strange part, even just thinking about stress can trigger the same cascade of physical changes as being in actual danger. Studies from the field of psychoneuroimmunology show that imagined stress, the kind you rehearse in your head over and over, can raise cortisol, stiffen blood vessels, and increase your heart rate just like real danger would. And yet, you sit there and think, what's wrong with me? The answer is, nothing. You're not broken. You're biologically brilliant. Your body is trying to keep you alive in a world it still doesn't fully trust. But here's where it gets fascinating. Just as thoughts can trigger your stress response, they can also help calm it down, not by thinking harder, but by noticing differently. Because when you become aware that your body is reacting to an old memory, an old belief, an old emotional wound, you create a moment of space, and in that space, you can choose to breathe, not to fix, not to control, but to remind your body that this moment is new. One of the most powerful tools for this is something called interoceptive awareness, your ability to feel and interpret the sensations of your body without fear. People who build this kind of body literacy, who learn to feel their heartbeat without panicking about it, begin to heal their relationship with their nervous system. They stop fighting the rush of adrenaline. They stop fearing their own pulse. And slowly, they start to trust their body again. You can practice this in simple ways. Lie down, place your hand over your heart, close your eyes, and instead of trying to slow your heartbeat, just listen to it. Feel its rhythm, its pace, its insistence. You might even thank it for beating even when you weren't sure you wanted it to. You don't have to slow it down. You just have to stop treating it like the enemy, because fear of the heartbeat can become its own stressor. And when you fear your body, you trap yourself in a loop. This is where mindfulness becomes medicine. Not the trendy kind with perfect poses and expensive gear, but the ancient, quiet kind, where you simply notice without judging, where you watch your body feel without trying to erase it, and in doing so, you show your heart something it rarely receives, compassion. There's single quotes, S. Another reason your heart might race even when you're safe. It's called hypervigilance, the tendency to stay alert at all times because you learned, at some point in life, that peace could be shattered at any moment. For people who grew up in unstable homes or lived through chronic stress, hypervigilance becomes a survival skill. You're always braced for impact, even in joy, even in stillness. And what does the body do when it's bracing? It speeds up, the heart prepares, even when nothing's coming. And in this way, many people live with a kind of silent turbulence. Their bodies always on edge, their hearts always a little too fast, even when their lives seem calm. But healing begins when you realize you don't have to live this way forever. The nervous system is plastic. It can change. It can learn new rhythms. And one of the most healing rhythms is co-regulation. This is what happens when you are around someone who is truly calm, not pretending, not distracted, but genuinely present. Your nervous system picks up on that. Your heart entrains, syncs up with their calmer rhythm. This is why children calm down when held by a parent with a steady voice. It's why a hug can slow your heart rate. It's why certain people make you feel safer just by being nearby. You don't even need words. Your hearts are speaking, and you can give this to yourself, too, through breath, through routine, through gentle reminders that you're not in danger. One method is resonant breathing, inhaling for 5 seconds, exhaling for 5 seconds, done for 10 to 15 minutes a day. Studies show this regulates the autonomic nervous system, lowers blood pressure, and restores healthy heart rate variability, not because it fixes the heart, but because it reminds the body, we are safe now, and if you're not safe, if you're still in something unstable or unkind, this kind of practice becomes a lifeline, a way to keep the heart soft, even in a hard season, because when the heart learns that fast does not always mean danger, when it learns that stillness can be trusted again, it begins to slow, not out of exhaustion, but out of relief. So tonight, if your chest feels tight, if your pulse feels too quick, pause not to shame it, but to listen. What is your body trying to protect you from? And is that moment already gone? If so, let it go. Not all fear deserves a heartbeat, and you, even with the ache and the rush and the leftover survival codes, you are allowed to rest. In the next chapter, we'll explore something even more mysterious, how your heart remembers, because it doesn't just beat in response to the now. It carries echoes of what once was. And the more you understand what it's holding, the more freedom you can reclaim. Chapter 3. The emotional memory of the heart. There's a certain kind of ache that doesn't speak in words. It just pulses quietly, predictably, inside your chest. Sometimes it feels like longing, sometimes like panic, sometimes like nothing at all, just a numb space where something should be. And we call it many things: heartbreak, anxiety, stress. But maybe it's something simpler, something older. Maybe it's memory, not in your head, in your heart. Because what if the heart remembers, not in language, but in rhythm, in how tightly it beats when someone raises their voice, in how it hesitates when you get close to someone new, in how it flutters at the sound of an old song you thought you'd forgotten. This is something scientists are only beginning to understand, that your heart may carry not just blood, but emotion, experience, impression, a kind of quiet biography written in pulses and pressure. Your heart was there for everything. Every disappointment you didn't have words for, every kindness you didn't know how to accept, every goodbye you didn't want to say. Your brain might forget, your calendar might erase it, but your heart doesn't. Let's start with something science does know. Your heart has its own nervous system. More than 40,000 neurons are woven into its walls. It's called the intrinsic cardiac nervous system, what some researchers call the heart's little brain. And these neurons don't just wait for orders. They feel, they sense pressure, they respond to hormones, they send information to your brain, especially to the emotional centers. So while we often think of the heart as passive, just a pump, it's much more than that. It's active, it's responsive, and maybe, just maybe, it's remembering you. There's a reason you hold your chest when something hurts, why heartbreak feels physical, why grief creates actual pressure behind your ribs. It's not in your imagination. It's in your biology. When you go through something deeply emotional, especially something unresolved, your nervous system records it. And those signals get stored not just in your brain, but in your body. This is what researchers call somatic memory, and the heart is one of its quietest keepers. You may have heard stories of heart transplant recipients suddenly developing new habits or cravings. A sudden love for jazz, a fear of water, a shift in handwriting or personality. And while science is cautious in interpreting these accounts, the stories persist, whispers of a memory that lives deeper than thought. But you don't need a transplant to know your heart remembers. Think about it. Why does your chest tighten when someone uses a certain tone? Why does your heartbeat change when you're about to open up? Why does lying still in a quiet room sometimes feel more dangerous than the chaos you were trying to escape? Because the body keeps score, and your heart is the rhythm section. Even the act of falling in love, which we treat as emotional, is, at its core, a biological reprogramming of the heart's response system. Your heartbeat changes in someone's presence. You become attuned to their voice, their breathing, their proximity. And when that bond is broken, the body doesn't just grieve, it loses its rhythm. People going through heartbreak often experience irregular heartbeats, digestive issues, poor sleep, and chest pain. It's called broken heart syndrome, and it's medically real. The heart knows loss, and it doesn't always know how to stop remembering. But here's the part we often forget. The heart doesn't just remember pain, it remembers patterns. If you grew up in chaos, your heart may associate stillness with threat. If love was always conditional, your heartbeat may race every time you feel truly seen. If you had to stay quiet to stay safe, you might find that every word you speak is accompanied by a little thunder in your chest, and over time, these patterns become your baseline. This is how your heart learns the emotional climate of your life, and how it starts preparing you preemptively for storms that may never come. But here's the good news. The heart is also capable of learning something new. It's not just a record keeper. It's a rhythm maker, which means it can change the beat. Not overnight, not by force, but slowly, gently, through repeated experiences of safety, presence, and truth. This is called emotional relearning, and it begins with awareness. When you notice your heart speeding up in a safe space, that's not a failure. That's a signal. Your body is saying, "This reminds me of something I had to survive." And instead of pushing that feeling away, you breathe into it. You speak gently. You give your heart a different outcome. Let's say you feel your chest tightening before sending a message to someone you care about. Old pattern, they'll leave if I'm honest. New moment, you send it anyway. You breathe, you survive. Your heart slows down, and something changes, not just emotionally, physically, because every moment of safety becomes a new memory. Your heart learns, not all closeness ends in pain. Not all silence means danger. Not all love is conditional. This is how healing works. Not in one grand gesture, but in tiny, repeated moments of permission, and the most powerful permission. To feel what you feel without judgment. You see, most of us never learned to sit with the heart. We learned to control it, suppress it, silence it. But the heart doesn't need silence. It needs softness. When you feel anxious, what if you didn't try to calm down? What if you just said, "Of course, you're scared. This matters too." That is co-regulation. That is neural rewiring. That is giving your heart a new story, one beat at a time. There's also something beautiful about heart rate variability, the measure of how flexible your heart's rhythm is. People with higher HRV tend to have better emotional adaptability. They recover faster from stress. They sleep more deeply. They feel more present. And do you know what increases HRV? Slow breathing, compassionate self-talk, connection, gratitude. These aren't soft concepts, they're measurable. They change the very shape of your heartbeat, which means the way you speak to yourself matters. Every time you say, "I shouldn't feel this," your heart braces. Every time you say, "I'm allowed to feel this," your heart releases. So tonight, If you feel your chest ache, don't rush to fix it. Listen, maybe it's grief. Maybe it's relief. Maybe it's an old memory resurfacing because your body finally feels safe enough to process it. Whatever it is, your job is not to shut it down. Your job is to stay, to breathe, to feel, because every emotion you allow without punishment becomes a new memory to dot, and slowly your heart begins to remember something softer. It remembers peace. It remembers warmth. It remembers that you are not the chaos you came from. You are the rhythm you choose now. And in the next chapter, we'll begin to learn that rhythm's language and how to hear the subtle ways your body speaks when your mind cannot, because your heartbeat has always been saying something. Let's learn how to understand it. Chapter 4. Heartbeat as language. What your body is trying to say. You've been listening to your thoughts your whole life. But there's another voice, far quieter, much older. It doesn't use words. It doesn't form arguments. It pulses, thumps, quickens, and stills. Your heartbeat, it is not just a rhythm. It's a language. Not a language to be translated, but to be felt. It's the soft Morse code of your body's truth, a truth you were never taught to read, because somewhere along the line, we were trained to only trust the mind, to explain everything, to rationalize pain, to not overreact, to just calm down, to stop feeling so much. But your body doesn't lie the way thoughts do, and your heart, especially your heart, has been telling you things long before your mouth could form the questions. Let's return there, to the language of your own biology. Think about how your heartbeat changes when you're near someone you love. It softens, or it flutters, or maybe it pounds in anticipation, not out of danger, but out of aliveness. And then think about how it reacts when you're in a room where you're not welcomed, a job where you don't feel safe, a conversation that is polite on the surface, but subtly cruel underneath. Your heart will often speak first. Before your mind can name the discomfort, your chest feels tight. Your pulse rises. You feel an ache, not emotional, but biological. Your body has already recognized the threat. This isn't weakness. It's not being too sensitive. It's your nervous system doing what it evolved to do: protect you, signal you, speak through you. Stanford researcher Dr. Robert Sapolsky once described how our bodies are wired not just to survive lions in the wild, but to interpret modern emotional threats in similar ways. When someone dismisses you, your brain doesn't see a rude coworker. It sees exile, a break in belonging, the primal fear of being left behind by the tribe, and your heart. It starts beating faster, not because of what happened, but because of what it means. You're not reacting to the words, you're reacting to the threat. Beneath the words, so many people feel broken, anxious for no reason, on edge without a cause. But what if there is a reason? What if your body is just tired of being ignored? What if it's trying to speak? Maybe that fatigue you feel every afternoon isn't just about blood sugar. Maybe it's also about being emotionally drained, performing all day in a place you feel you can't be yourself. Maybe the shallow breathing you do in meetings isn't a bad habit. Maybe it's your body saying, this situation doesn't feel safe. And maybe, just maybe, that loud, racing heartbeat you get before seeing someone from your past isn't just nerves. It's memory, it's muscle, it's meaning. Have you ever noticed how some spaces feel peaceful before you even know why? Your heart slows, your shoulders drop. You feel your pulse in your wrists, and it's steady. Or the opposite, You walk into a room, and your body just knows this isn't the place, even if everyone's smiling, even if no one says a cruel word. You leave, and your heartbeat settles, and you finally breathe again. That's not irrational, that's intelligence. A kind of intelligence that comes from the body, not the brain. We've spent too long calling this kind of knowing woo-woo, but the science is here. In the 1990s, researchers began uncovering how the heart communicates with the brain in a two-way conversation. This isn't poetic metaphor, it's called heart-brain coherence. The heart doesn't just receive orders from the brain, it sends signals back through nerves, hormones, and subtle electromagnetic fields. When your heartbeat becomes erratic, fast, irregular, sharp, it can actually influence how your brain processes emotion. An anxious heart can create an anxious mind, but the opposite is also true. A calm, steady heart rhythm sends signals to the brain that help restore clarity, decision-making, emotional balance, self-control. Your heartbeat is not just a response, it's a regulator, a guide, and that's the beautiful, quietly powerful truth. You can speak back to your body, too. You can learn the rhythm of your own calm and invite it. How? By breathing slowly, not to calm down, but to show your heart you're safe. By pausing after hard moments, not rushing to distract yourself, but giving your heart time to return to its natural rhythm, the slow, soft beat of safety. By noticing, when does your heartbeat rise in the day? What patterns live in your body? Who makes it race? Who makes it steady? This is emotional fluency through the body. This is understanding yourself without needing a single word, because there is a language your body speaks, and you are the only translator. No doctor, no test, no algorithm can fully interpret the pulses of your own safety and stress. But you can, if you start listening. We live in a world where we are taught to look for symptoms, but never the story beneath them. Your heart holds some of that story. Not the facts, but the feelings. So start asking, what was my heart trying to say today? What did it whisper before my thoughts overrode it? When did it race, and why? When did it calm, and how? And in that quiet listening, you might find something astonishing, that your body never stopped speaking. Only you stopped hearing. Think about that. If your heartbeat could speak in sentences, what would it have told you during the last heartbreak? Would it have said, "This hurts, but you'll survive"? Would it have said, "You deserve more than tension and confusion"? And what does it say when you're alone in a moment of peace? When the world is quiet and your pulse slows to that ancient rhythm? Maybe it says, "Here, this is who you are, not the performance, not the anxiety, not the pressure, but the person who still exists underneath it all." That quiet drum inside you, it's not just keeping you alive, it's trying to help you feel alive. So tonight, as you lie down, don't just sleep to escape the day, sleep to return to your rhythm, to let your heartbeat come home. Place a hand on your chest if you want. Feel it. The soft rise and fall. The pulse beneath your skin. You're still here. You're still speaking. And the language of your heartbeat is still waiting to be heard. In the next chapter, we'll listen even more closely. We'll explore how your heart, sleep, and emotional healing are connected, and how the rhythm of your body might just be the lullaby your mind has always needed. So rest now, let the heartbeat soften, and we'll meet again in the quiet chapter that follows. Chapter 5, The Forgiving Heart, How to Breathe, Feel, and Begin Again. There is a moment, subtle, often missed, when your heart gives you permission to begin again. Not because everything is fixed, not because all the wounds are healed, but because something inside you has softened just enough to let go. It doesn't arrive with fireworks. It doesn't shout or demand attention. It feels more like the exhale after a long-held breath, a quiet readiness, a silent yes. The forgiving heart doesn't wait for life to be perfect. It only waits for you to return to it. You may have spent years believing that your heart was hard, cold, closed off, that maybe something broke inside you permanently, that you were too tired to hurt, too behind to ever feel like yourself again. But the truth is, your heart never stopped trying, even in the moments when you felt numb, even when you made choices you weren't proud of, even when you gave up on things you once believed in. Your heart kept beating, steady, unseen, waiting. Forgiveness, at its core, is not something you do for others. It's something you do with your nervous system. It's what happens when you stop rehearsing the past long enough to let your body feel safe in the present. It's biological, emotional, neurological, and it begins with the breath. There's something extraordinary about breathing deeply when you're hurting. It doesn't fix the pain, but it makes space for it. It doesn't erase the memories, but it tells your body, we're not in danger anymore, see. When you take slow, conscious breaths, especially out through your mouth, you activate your parasympathetic nervous system. That's the rest and digest system, the body's built-in exhale, the gear that tells your heart it's safe to slow down, that it doesn't have to run anymore. And your heart listens, because the heart isn't just a pump, it's a listener, a responder, a student of your inner weather. If you breathe like you're in danger, your heart will beat like you are. But if you breathe like you're healing, slowly, with curiosity, with presence, your heart will shift, quietly, but surely. This isn't just poetic language. It's neuroscience. In a study published in Frontiers in Psychology, researchers found that deep rhythmic breathing, particularly slow exhalations, directly influences heart rate variability, HRV, which is a key marker of emotional resilience. Higher HRV means your body can bounce back from stress more easily. It means your heart is adapting, learning, forgiving. So every time you slow your breath, you're not just calming down, you're rewriting the emotional memory your body carries. You're saying, I'm here now, I'm safe now, we can start again. But breathing is only the beginning to truly forgive. To let your heart unclench, you have to feel, and feeling is hard, because to feel means you have to stop running. You have to sit with the grief you avoided, the rage you buried, the disappointment you pretended didn't matter. You have to feel how deeply you wanted something, or someone, or some version of yourself, and how it didn't happen, and how unfair that still feels. But the heart, it doesn't judge your feelings. It doesn't say you're being dramatic or weak or unreasonable. It just listens, beat by beat, moment by moment. Your job isn't to rush that process. Your job is to stay with it, gently, like you would stay with a crying child. No fixing, just presence, because presence is what rewires the pain, not platitudes, not advice, not logic, just presence. Your heart doesn't need you to have all the answers. It just needs to know you're willing to feel. And feeling is what softens the scar tissue, what reopens the parts of you that closed too soon, what turns the armor back into skin. Have you ever noticed how the heart speeds up, not just from fear, but from beauty, from love, from awe, from truth, the same organ that races when you're scared also flutters when someone truly sees you. It quickens when music moves you. It stirs when you speak your truth, even if your voice shakes. Your heart responds to authenticity, to moments when you're not hiding. So maybe the path to healing isn't about protecting your heart more, but about revealing it slowly, safely, in the right places. Because the forgiving heart isn't a guarded heart. It's a heart that's learned the difference between danger and discomfort, between threat and truth. It's a heart that knows, just because it hurt before, doesn't mean it will hurt forever. There's an old saying in cardiology, time is muscle. It means the longer the heart goes without oxygen, the more damage occurs. But it also means the faster you bring back flow, the more of the heart you can save. The same is true emotionally. When you go months or years without tending to what's hurt you, you may feel like parts of your heart have gone numb, unreachable, but it's never too late to bring back oxygen, to bring back breath, to bring back feeling. Time may be muscle, but forgiveness is flow. It brings life back to the places you thought were lost. It reminds you that even the most wounded parts of you are not beyond repair, and you don't have to forgive all at once. You don't even have to know what it looks like. You just have to choose, in this moment, to stop punishing yourself, to stop replaying the story that says, I should have known, I should have done better, I should have been stronger. The heart doesn't heal through blame, it heals through mercy. What would it feel like to give yourself mercy, to place your hand over your chest, breathe slowly, and whisper, I'm sorry for everything I've asked you to carry alone, to remember that your heart has done its best through breakups and burnout, through panic and pressure, through loneliness and longing. It's still beating, still showing up, still hoping you'll choose softness. Even now, forgiveness isn't a final step. It's a way of relating to your life, a way of waking up each day and deciding that the past doesn't get to make you small. It's the decision to give yourself new chances, not because you're perfect, but because you're growing. It's the decision to love yourself, not for who you might become, but for the fact that you're still here, still trying, still breathing. Forgiveness isn't erasure, it's expansion. It's making room inside yourself for complexity, for contradiction, for grace. It's how the heart, both biological and emotional, stays open in a world that keeps breaking and remaking us. So tonight, if you do one thing, let it be this: breathe, slowly, with kindness, feel, even if it aches. Place your hand over your heart, and remember, you don't have to be finished to be forgiven. You don't have to be healed to be worthy of rest. You don't have to have answers to be allowed to begin again. The forgiving heart is always ready. It has always been ready. It's just been waiting. For you, thank you for listening tonight. If this chapter helped you soften or breathe a little easier, consider liking this video, subscribing, and sharing it with someone you love. These are lessons the heart deserves to hear in the quiet. And if you'd like to let us know, what did your heart remember tonight? Leave a comment below. We'd love to hear from you whenever you're ready. Until next time, good night.